copywriter? I barely know her. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Tactical and Practical. In today's a special one. We are going to talk about how to write copy with the help of ChatGPT with one of the best e-commerce CMOs in the game right now, MacDonald from Ridge. I'm so happy to have him on the pod. I've been a follower of Connor for years. I've learned a ton from him. So if you're listening to this podcast because you want to learn from me, you might as well just listen to the guy that I learn a bunch of stuff from. So super excited to get into this conversation. But first, couple big announcements. This episode is all about copywriting, and there's two places where we use and test this copy a ton. It's with IntelliGems. IntelliGems is one of our sponsors today, and it is the ultimate profit optimization tool for your e-com store. All of this copy that we're going to talk about in this episode gets tested on our website through IntelliGems and shows us very clearly both how powerful it is and how to unlock new opportunities and ultimately grow your top and bottom line through split testing. So go to intelligems.io to schedule a demo today. Let them know I sent you. And number two, we've got a brand new sponsor to the pod. It's our friends over at Postscript, the best SMS and intelligence platform out there. We've been customers of Postscript for 4 or 5 years now. And recently I've gotten started on the new AI Infinity testing tool that is one of the best AI tools I've ever seen out there. And in this episode, we're going to talk about how we kind of write copy for SMS as well. So make sure you stay for this full conversation. It's a juicy one. And if you're looking for an SMS partner, go check out postscript.io. Let them know the Tactical and Practical podcast sent you. And without further ado, I don't know what that word means. Without further delay, MacDonald from Ridge. MacDonald, welcome to Tactical and Practical, man. How are you?
Dude, good. My second time back. I'm stoked on it.
Welcome back, dude. It's good to have you. And today we're going to talk about writing copy with AI. It was a topic that you hit me up about, and I'm super excited about it because I nerd out on this, and I've been like obsessed with copywriting for the last year. And I feel like it doesn't get talked about enough. So thank you for bringing this topic out of the shadows and into the mainstream here.
Dude, totally. I've been having the thought recently. It's such a fun time to be with AI, to be like a 10x copywriter. Like that's not really like a role. Like you could really be scalable. So I think that's cool. And same with customer service. I've been going deep with our customer service team, and people can just be so high leverage right now using AI. I think it's super exciting. So I get to, I've got a lot of things to worry about. Like copywriting technically shouldn't be on my plate, but it's a passion.
Same,
I've been having fun with it.
Same. And I think it matters a lot. Like early on in my marketing career, I slept on copy. Like I thought it was the least important thing in our ads or emails or website. It was always kind of an afterthought. And that all flipped for me a couple years ago when we started putting good thought into it and could start split testing it with IntelliGems on our website. And it's become like my favorite thing to do now. What was your kind of like intro to copywriting, even before AI? Like, how did you start to realize this was or should be a priority for your marketing department?
Well, I remember the first time we split tested it. It was on an email, like 2018, probably, like really like quite a while ago. And we were just looking at, well, how can we were looking to redo like our whole email workflow, better designs, better copy. And I remember making a point like, yeah, I just feel like with some better words here, like we could really see a dramatic improvement in performance. Cause a lot of people think of it as like a branding thing. Like it might not, it's not the most obvious like performance lever that you have. But yeah, I remember A/B testing that email initially. It was like we saw a 25% higher click-through rate with just different words on the page, same design.
Yeah,
and it's like,
crazy.
Oh yeah, people are compelled by more interesting words. So that was a great example of us like realizing that as a performance lever. In terms of priority in the org, like I think we could better prioritize it. I'll start with that. I talk about it with the team. And it's one of the reasons we're talking about AI is like, how do we make everybody at the org a better copywriter? Because I don't know how you feel about this, but when we think about all of the surface area across all of the business, it's incredibly hard. Like we need everybody to be strong in the written word. And that's why I've been geeking out on AI. I think that's like an ideal tool to help do that.
Yeah, well, take me through it. When did you kind of start leaning on some of these tools? What tools are your go-tos? And what was that kind of like early process like for you? Because for me, like my process has changed so much with it in the last year and a half-ish. Early on, I never straight copy and pasted stuff from ChatGPT, but I would like lean on it a little too hard, and now I think I'm using it a little smarter, using it for what it's best at, and still kind of putting my human touch into it. So we're kind of like the early days of writing copy with AI for you.
Yeah, so it was when we let go of our copywriter around this time last year, and it was like, man, we're going into it is Q4. We've got a lot to write. How can we do this in a scalable way? And what I realized immediately was, one, it's just like it's really easy to be an ineffective copywriter, right?
Mm,
Like, especially in the context of today's tools. Like, if you are a super traditional copywriter, even a decent and traditional copywriter, I think you're just quickly being surpassed, or
yep.
you're like relatively becoming much less effective. So that's what we realized about a year ago, where it's like, hey, we could actually remove people from the org, and just with slightly better processes and a better usage of tools, copy could be better. We could write more of it. We could scale it across the org more effectively. So that's when we first realized it. And then in terms of some of the unlocks, where how can I sit down, or someone at the org sit down and write on brand copy that's compelling and interesting and ultimately like checks all the boxes that we need to across all of our channels? We started with a couple things. One, we have this doc called like the brand corpus, and maybe you have something similar.
Mm-hmm.
It's really all about like, how do you set the tone for ChatGPT? Like, that's what we use.
Yep.
Which is also probably a pretty rudimentary tool compared to other things, but that's what we're doing. This chat interface, ChatGPT. We have the brand corpus, general like brand about what we are, what we aren't, things to never say. And then depending on what we need to write, we'll have smaller summaries for categories. So for wallets, travel, rings, we'll talk about features and benefits and what that means to the brand. Because from a copy standpoint for us, it's often, hey, we're launching this carabiner. What are the features and benefits? And then how do we tie this back to the mission of the company? And that's how it ultimately feels cohesive and thoughtful and compelling. So a lot of our like initial priming is like setting the tone for that. What ChatGPT knows what our mission, vision, values are, what we say, what we don't, why we sell wallets, rings, and travel. And then depending on a given campaign, we're feeding it slightly more information. We'll feed it the product summary from the product team,
Mm-hmm.
certain attributes that we want to highlight. And that basically sets the stage for delivering on a copy doc.
Do you ever feed it like examples of past copy that has worked really well? Or is that
Totally.
kind of all tied up in that brand corpus doc?
Yeah. So the brand corpus is like an evolving document,
Yeah.
essentially, where it's like what can also live in there is a little blurb for wallets, and like why we sell those. But
Mm,
now we have MLB in there, NFL in there. We have, like I said, travel in there, carry-ons in there, certain accessories. So it's like this brand corpus is essentially like the central doc. So we have refined how we want to speak to certain things. So when we launch a new colorway, like the Hyperlime key case and pen, we can prime it with the information it needs about the key case and the pen. And now we're just ideating on copy for why we're launching a Hyperlime colored product.
awesome. So then take me through that part of the process. And you've got this doc that tells chat exactly who you are, why you do what you do, past examples of stuff that's worked for y'all. Then it's time to come launch knives, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, by the way. It's sharp, so watch
Dude,
out
did
for
you
that.
really cut
I
your
really
finger
did.
with it?
Yeah, it's
All
bad.
right,
Like
yeah.
stitches, bad.
Oh, man.
Um, but that's my fault. User error. I won't be suing Ridge or anything.
Appreciate
Um,
it.
but when it comes time to launch that new collection, what are the prompts? What does it give to you? And then are you copy and pasting that? Are you massaging that? Does that kind of get tweaked for each medium it's going to go out on, whether it's ads or emails or
Totally.
landers? Talk me through kind of like to get the final output. What's that look like?
Yeah, so we ultimately have so what I highlighted earlier was like how are we priming and giving ChatGPT the context for like how we want to speak, the type of copy that we want it to deliver. And then what we have is we have just a really simple like copy template, which is what you would have in a traditional copywriting sense.
Yep.
When we want to go to market, we have a campaign summary, we have a bunch of headlines we want to deliver, we have headlines in short form, and we have SMS. And that's actually this for a non-product campaign. For
Mm,
launching products, we'll include headlines and short form copy around certain features, and we'll like talk about the silhouette. But let's just use campaign as an example. So summary, headlines, short form, and then we'll specifically like SMS or a couple other like very specific examples of copy. Now for each of those, we basically have a prompt tied with it where we will say, hey,
mm,
I've got a couple written down here, but like the campaign summary is this is what we did for Linus Tech Tips, which is like not rocket science. And it really, I think all of the value is created in that initial priming. We say,
Yeah.
write 500, 700 characters, introducing the Linus Tech Tips wallet to the Ridge audience, tie it back to Ridge's mission and our brand values, make it compelling, engaging, quippy, but not cheesy. And there were a couple other
Quippy, but
things like,
not cheesy.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love that.
Because we want to land, I mean, that's like, I think we do it decently here, but like a lot of the feedback comes, we want to be, it's kind of like a dry humor. If we want to be humorous at all, it's like a dry humor. It's
Mhm.
clever, it's quippy, it's not like wacky
Yep.
or cheesy or anything like that. So we're trying to like weed that out.
I feel
That's
like
an
chat
example.
defaults to cheesy. Like chat wants to
Absolutely.
be cheesy so hard. Like I was talking on Twitter the other day about like how awful some of these like minor holiday promo texts I get all are. Like I got one for like spooktacular
Yeah.
savings this month, and I'm
Yeah.
like, come on guys, like we got to be doing something better than that. But if you don't prime chat right, I feel like that's what you're gonna get.
Yeah, totally. And like, there's a lot of massaging that goes back and forth. This is when it gets really fun because it feels like a form of, it's just curating, right? Like you
Mhm.
get to pick and choose. Like every once in a while, I remember first realizing that ChatGPT would do this. I thought it was amazing, but it would like introduce its own ideas, right?
Mhm.
Like it would take like creative liberties and introduce an idea, and it's like, oh, that is really interesting. Like let's pull that out and write 150 characters on that, and that can become short form. So it is. I described it to someone recently as like one of the reasons it's so fun is it feels like brainstorming, but singularly, right?
Yeah.
You're on this like, I mean, it's a tool, like you're on like a mental bicycle or something. You have this like force that's like pushing back at you, introducing new ideas, responding to your prompts, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot. It's sometimes that those 500 characters are perfect, frankly, or like when it's shorter, it's more likely to be really strong. And I will literally just copy and paste it out. And I feel like it is
It
pretty
doesn't come
unique and
across
and
that way.
and on brand. Yeah, yeah. So that's where we're at currently. So that's it. That's the general overview of the process. How does that compare to what you're doing?
Just like all of our marketing stacks up against each other's, you guys are just a couple hundred chapters further ahead and deeper than me. But same general process of I tell it who we are, what we stand for. I tell it a lot more, to be honest, about our customers,
Mhm.
about who they are rather than about who we are. That's been a big theme for us the last year and a half, like making our copy more customer centric. Has never lost a split test yet. So give it a lot of information. So this time of year, I'm telling it that like, hey, our customers are going to be middle-aged women that are buying watches for their husbands. Their husbands like whiskey and beer, and they might have served in the military. They're patriotic. They're proud. They're the breadwinners of their families. We need to convince her to buy him a gift that shows him he's worth it this time of year. So a lot of priming about our customers, and then from there, I ask it, I think, a lot more questions than you probably do. I ask, like, hey, like, what are some positive adjectives that you would use to describe that kind of man? And what kind of adjectives does that woman want to be called when it comes to gift giving? Does she want to be thoughtful, or does she want to be a show-stopping gift giver? And then we pull out a lot of those adjectives and work them into our copy. Um, but general kind of overview, same process. I'm just trying to be as fixated on our customers as possible.
Awesome. I'm just now realizing this was maybe 2 weeks ago, but I went down the rabbit hole of D2C podcasts. So I listened to Taylor Holiday's where they talked about some sort of like AI workflows. He mentioned Sarah Levinger
Yep, who we work with.
on Andrew Ferris. Yes, and then I listened to that one, and they talked all about writing copy for Original Grain. So,
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
yeah, 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 it was awesome. And they mentioned that a lot. Like, and I did this and I experimented, and then I sent it over to the team because I think it's a great workflow. But do you export customer reviews and then upload those? That's such an interesting kind of workflow.
Yeah, so it was Sarah that first opened my eyes to how powerful copy could be. When I took this job, yikes on that voice crack. When I took this job 3 years ago, I would have told you that people buy our watches because they're inlaid with whiskey barrel wood. That's what makes them cool. So that's why people buy them. That's not why people buy our watches. So through her work, we uploaded all our customer reviews to Chat, and asked Chat to tell us like the core emotions that people were experiencing and looking to solve when they purchase from us. We found that the men who buy watches for themselves want to be respected and admired and accepted by their tribe. And the women who buy it for their husbands want to be nurturers, and they want to show their man that they value and appreciate and respect and love him. So that's been really big for us, and kind of like opened my eyes to be like, oh, people only care that it's inlaid with whiskey barrel wood at the very last stage of the purchasing decision when they choose which one they want. But that's not why they're buying a watch in the first place. And that's something that I've taken into like a lot of our copywriting sessions is like, why does our category exist? Like, we'll convince someone to buy a certain watch at some point, but why do watches exist at all? And it's not to tell time anymore. It's a status symbol. It's people want to be respected and admired for what that watch is. For guys that we see at business conferences all the time, it's a Rolex or it's an AP, because that shows a certain level of financial success. But for the guys who buy from OG, they are known as the whiskey aficionado in their group, or they're a rough and rugged and dependable guy. So they want a watch as dependable as they are. So that's kind of opened our eyes up a lot. And yeah, the work with Sarah has been crazy valuable. The headline that she wrote for us 2 years ago is undefeated against me and Chat's best effort, which hurts my
What is it?
ego, but it's good for our bottom line. Show your man he's worth every second with a gift as unique and classic as he is.
Yeah,
Crushes.
killer.
Crushes. I can't beat it, which sucks, but it helps us make a ton of money.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so the other question that I have, so one, super interesting. You ask a lot of questions. It's way more consumer centric. And what I also say, what I just described is what we've spent a lot of time on over the last 2 years is we've just brought a lot of things to market. We've had like new launches like
Yep.
almost every week. So it's been a matter of like, how are we templatizing deliverables and how are we like scalably writing into those deliverables? It should probably be more customer centric, or at least that should be a part of the workflow. But for you guys, like when you're writing it, is it email copy? Is it ad copy? Like what are you writing into? What's that deliverable for?
I spend most of my time on landing pages copy. I've been obsessed with split testing on our website, as you know, for a couple of years, because it makes everything work better. So that's always kind of like my testing grounds. And then from there, I tweak it, expand it, shorten it to fit into ads and emails and texts and wherever else it needs to live.
Dude, awesome. Um, that's cool. Do you have any? I have one, so I could take it first if you don't have one off the top of your head, but any hacks? Anything that you would describe as a hack?
Yeah, I've got one. If I'm having trouble with something, or if I feel like a paragraph is just like it's not quite there, I will give it to Chat, and this is after like working it out with Chat, but I still just feel like, it's not quite there. I'll ask Chat to rewrite it 10 times. Like, hey, like go write 10 new versions that convey all the same points as this sentence or paragraph or headline. And usually in one of them, there'll be a word or two that's different that I'm like, yep, that's it. That's what I want.
Yeah. Yeah, so just like you just solve it with volume. "Hey, deliver
Yeah,
me a
right.
bunch of stuff."
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
What about you?
yeah. I've got 2 written down here. One, I realized, like, I saw Yeti does this really well. They have a great tone, like, kind of what we're
Mhm.
looking for, where it's like, it's not wacky, it's elevated. But what they'll often do is, like, they'll just appropriate or, like, reappropriate common idioms or phrases. So, I'm like, if they were to do, like a high dive blue collection, they'd have some clever way of tying in waves or something like
Yep,
that. Make waves with your gear,
yep.
something like that. So I just started asking, like, I brought up Hyperlime earlier, which was this like bright yellow color that we launched last year. And the premise of it was it just being this like this fluorescent bright color, and it's something that you'd find in like running shoes, or like if you're some sort of contractor, you might wear it to be like seen in the dark, things like that. So it's got this like performance element. It's like fluorescent, it's bright. So we were like highlighting copy like that. And I was like, give me 5 idioms or phrases that relate to, shining in the dark, something like that. And it
Nice.
delivers a bunch of those. And then I say, maybe I find 1 or 2 that I like, and I'll say, rewrite this as it relates to our new launch, this new like Ridge wallet or whatever. And then it'll apply to a little bit further. And it's just such a templatized way to get to something that feels very like novel and creative. And it takes those 2 steps though. If you're like, hey, give me a
Yeah.
catchy headline, it won't do it. You have to tease out, hey, I want an
Mhm.
idiom first. I want something that people will recognize. And then I want you to like apply that to this launch. And we found a bunch of like clever stuff that way. And that process kind of blows me away, just because when you break it down like that to like more of an atomic level, it feels a lot less creative, but the output's like cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's great. There's one more that I've done a couple times now. So, over half the watches we sell are inlaid with the whiskey barrel wood, which is great for me, big whiskey guy. So I know everything there is to know about that niche. But we also sell watches from military ammo crates, guitar tone wood. There's a new line out that's infused with coffee bean resin, whole bunch of other different unique materials. Not all of them I know much about at all. So I've given Chad examples of copy that I've written for our whiskey collection that we know will work. And I've told it, like, hey, take this, rewrite it for our coffee collection, and it fills in like the gaps in my knowledge, basically, of like when I say for whiskey, you know, whether you like drinking top shelf bourbon neat or chugging Jack and Cokes, like this is the watch for you. I don't know the equivalent of what that means for coffee
Right.
guys, but chat does. And it's been really helpful to kind of just like expand what I know uh, with copy that's like historically proven to work.
Dude, totally. Yeah. I told you I was working on a bunch of copy this morning. And before we started recording, we were talking about the World Series coming up. The
Yep.
most commercially potent World Series
Yep.
between the Yankees and Dodgers.
Yep.
So I was writing that copy this morning. I did the exact same thing. I was like, look, you're a diehard Dodgers fan. What are some references that only you would know? Exact same
Mm,
process. Like, let me unearth some information that
yep.
I'd otherwise have to go research or ask my Dodger fan friends or whatever. It can kind of feed that to me, and then we can integrate it from there. Exact same process, but you just have this like wealth of information
Yeah.
available to you that's just a prompt away.
Yeah. It's awesome. Is there a did you have one more hack or no?
I did, and this
Hit me
one's
with it.
actually like more of like a shortcut, just like out of laziness.
That's
But another one that I
those
was
are the
like,
best hacks.
yeah, I guess that's kind of the point. Um, we were
Isn't this
doing
whole
one
thing
recently.
out of
Yeah.
laziness? Isn't this?
Yeah. So we're launching these products Thursday. It's by an artist called Claire Morales, and they're kind of this like she's got this very fun cartoon graphics that she designed for us, and like one is called Space Fruit, and they look like these like kind of stoner fruits and vegetables like floating around in space.
Nice.
Um, yeah, it's a fun design, and Claire's really cool. But I was trying to figure out like, yeah, what do these designs have to do with our mission, vision, values? Like
Mm,
we're designing innovative functional products for every day and built for life. What is that? What do these stoner space fruits have to do with that? And we had her artist bio as well, which was like she wanted to bring, spark joy and like intrigue in the everyday, stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I told Chat. I also like that you call ChatGPT Chat. It feels like you guys are on a first name
yeah.
basis.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. We go way back. We're about
um, I'm like, all right, Chat, like this is what Claire does, and like these are what the designs are. These are our mission, vision, values. Like, what about these designs can be related to our
mm,
brand mission? And just like filtered through it that way, where it's like, let's kind of identify and distill this like common thread. And that was ultimately like the jumping off point for the rest of the copy. And it ended up being like, oh yeah, we want to design products that are built for the everyday and any day, that like
mm,
no matter what happens, the unexpected, et cetera, like you'll be ready. And like these designs and kind of her approach to art strikes a similar chord. And like chat basically distilled that. And I would have gotten there. Like I totally would have gotten there if
Oh,
I'd really
yeah, it
thought
just
about
would
it.
have taken a while.
But it was much easier to be like, these are the two things that we need to find a common thread around. Like, let's just filter through what that could sound like. And that was a big unlock. So we're doing that more and more.
Yeah, dude, it's so crazy that we have like this tool at our disposal that we can just force into thinking. Cause like, I don't know what your copywriting process was like before chat, but like I could sit here for an hour and try to think about stuff and like I'll get distracted or I'll be listening to music and I'll think of something else or an email will come through. But to be able to have a tool that we can force into thinking like, hey, there are two things, we need them to come together in a way that represents us and whatever the thing is we're selling, like do it. Think about it right now. No distractions. It's just, I'm amazed by it. I think daily how powerful it's getting.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying it's such an exciting time to be a
Yeah.
copywriter. It's also cool to be able to extrapolate out on ideas. Like the one thing, and I imagine you found this as well, but like it's really easy for chat to you'll write copy that like has no bite to it. Like there's
Hmm.
no, I always say like bite or like doesn't have like a
Soul.
point. There's something like,
Yeah.
yeah, soul or sharp about it. So it's like, okay, yeah, you have to identify that. And that's maybe for us, what I just described in like, what is that common thread? Like, we don't just want to talk that there's fruits like floating around on the
Right.
wallet. Like we want there to be a purpose, like something unique that's going to stick with a customer's memory. So one, in the example that I just gave, you can maybe help identify that. But two, if you have that, it's much easier to get compelling copy if you can come with that unique idea and then just extrapolate on that further, expand on the ideas, pull it out into different pieces, cut it down so it fits into a single, SMS, things like that. And that's what used to be so cumbersome. I mean, previously we would do everything. We'd have to write into exactly what I just described, but it was all manual and it would
Yeah.
just take significantly longer.
Yeah. Is there any copy that Rage puts out these days that chat doesn't have its hands on?
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's like some product stuff that gets
Yeah.
mostly
Yeah.
handwritten right now. It's just a matter of like one chat not getting adopted across the org as much as it probably could. Like, I
Mhm.
think the best version of Ridge copy is some touch point with like AI. But yeah, there's plenty of examples. I mean, the paid team will just pop in some pretty generic or like historical winning copy that we'll just drop in there for certain ads. So there's definitely examples, but all the stuff we're bringing to market, so everything new, that copy, the crux of it, the cornerstone of it is like very heavily influenced by AI.
Awesome. What are some pitfalls? What are some mistakes that people should avoid when they're going to chat to write their copy?
Yeah, I think it's things that I will have already kind of hit on, but you have to prime it because otherwise you get super
Yeah.
generic stuff. Um,
And
and
like I want to double down on that because I think you said that d- doc of yours is 6 pages long,
it's not
or
quite
did you say that
6, but
something
it's a
about
lot.
anything
It's
else?
like thousands of characters. Yeah,
Yeah, so, like, to anyone listening, like, don't tell it a sentence or 2 about who you are. Like, tell it as much as you possibly can, because I have seen, like, whenever I try to do something quick on chat, it, like, doesn't turn out as good as if I
totally.
sat down for 15 minutes, and I was like, "Let me prime this the right way," before asking it what I'm actually looking for.
Totally. And we have separate documents that we are like
Mm,
pasting in every time because it's too robust of a doc to like try to prompt
right.
yourself each time. So that's one. And then the second one is that good copy really comes from good ideas and chat is not necessarily there for good ideas. That is a completely different process to identify like, hey, what about this product or this value prop is actually interesting? Now chat can help you make that into words that are better than than what you might otherwise write. And I think that distinction is really key too.
Interesting. Is there anything you think chat's not good at yet? Is there anything that, like, you don't fully trust it to do? Or are you, with your system of priming, like, very confident in every output now?
I'm pretty confident in it. I
Yeah.
mean, the more recent models, like I had the thought this was a couple months ago at this point. I've been doing this for about a year. Um, It got really good, like, over the summer, where I was like, "Oh,"
Yeah.
like, if you'd asked me in January or February, I'd be like, oh yeah, sometimes it just does not do anything that
Yeah.
you want. Where recently I'm like, okay, yeah, I can basically always get it to where I want. So it gets really close. That's just from a copy standpoint. It would go back to a lack of good, unique ideas. Like trying to prompt something unique and novel is really difficult. So it obviously will miss that. It will sometimes miss non-obvious connections. So I think that's where it's like the most helpful if you can be like, you can bring that initial idea, that initial connection as to like what you want to write about. It's really good from there. But before that, it's super hit or miss.
Interesting. Okay. Is there anything I didn't hit on that you think I should? What am I missing about writing copy with chat?
I think we hit most of how we treat it internally. You bring up a really good point around it just ingesting more information, reviews, social
Yeah.
posts, comments, things like that, I think is super cool and for us unexplored. So there's more to dive in there for sure.
Yeah, I would do it for sure. And if you don't want to, Sarah's not super expensive, so I'll give her a free shout out here. And I don't get commission on that, which is bullshit, Sarah. Help me out here. But yeah, no, like uncovering that stuff was really powerful for us. And then for us, like our winning uh headline for gifting has been the one that she wrote, but all of our headlines for the guys who buy the watches for themselves have turned into essentially just complimenting them, like just gassing up our customers. So we say our whiskey barrel watches are smooth and unique, just like the guys who wear them. And our ones made from like naturally fallen trees are rugged and responsible, just like the men who wear them. And like that
Right.
format has crushed time and time again. And I've gotten the chance to write some of those for other brands this year, and they've crushed for them as well. One for another knife company was they're sharp and reliable, just like the chefs who trust them. And one for a whiskey brand was bold and full of character, just like the men who drink it. And like I just haven't seen it lose yet when you stay customer focused, and when you are kind of like attaching the positive attributes those people want to see in themselves to the products they're buying.
Right.
Then buying that product becomes like a solidification of their identity. So that's something that me and Chat have talked about for pages and pages and
Yeah,
pages,
you
and
guys have
seems
gone
to
deep
go
on.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, cool, dude. Thanks so much for coming back. We should make the quarterly thing if you're down.
Dude, I'm super down.
Where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter. COUUOR. So it's like Connor, but with the ends upside down. That's my
Yeah.
handle.
Marketing Operators Pod
Marketing Operators
newsletter
Pod.
still
Yeah, thanks for the
crushing,
plug, dude.
doing crazy
Yeah.
numbers, by the way. This won't give you a significant bump to the numbers that y'all are doing, but it's
Yeah, we
crazy, man.
got
It's
the
awesome.
pod too. We got some cool Q4 content coming out, so people should tune in.
Awesome. Can't wait. Well, dude, thanks so much for coming on. Wish you the best of luck this Q4. I hope the Yankees win next week because I'm a Yankees fan, but also I think they'll sell a lot more wallets for you than the
All right,
Dodgers would.
perfect.
But good luck, man. And let's talk again soon.
Awesome. You as well. Thank you.